morning, everyone. I'll now call to order the meeting of the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents. Would the Secretary please read the roll?
Regent Bartell.
Here.
Regent Bradley.
Here.
Regent Burmaster. Here. Regent Conley-Kiesler. Regent Crane. Here. Regent Keene. Here. Regent Davis. Here. Regent Drew. Regent Falbo.
Here.
Regent Loftus.
Here.
Regent Opkenorth.
Here.
Regent Pruitt.
Here.
Regent Smith.
Here.
Regent Spector.
Here.
Regent Thomas.
Here.
Regent Vasquez. Regent Walsh. Regent Womack. A quorum is present.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'd like to extend our appreciation to everybody from UW-La Crosse who has seen to just about every possible detail to make sure that our comforts are attended to and also we can conduct our business here. So we appreciate everyone's efforts. Splendid job. First item on our agenda today is to hear a report on the UW System Climate Study. And I would call upon President Kevin Riley.
Thank you, President Bradley. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all, and we're delighted to be here in La Crosse. And again, let me add my thanks to Mark for the great job that Joe and his colleagues have done in setting this meeting up. We look forward to the next 2 days. And let me start by apologizing if my voice is a little stressed because I have a terrible cold, and I'll keep hydrating while I'm talking, and hopefully that will work. We are going to discuss our UW System Campus Climate Assessment this morning. It's something that has very little to do with snowfall and a day's high temperature. By the way, Chancellor Gal's been apologizing for the 14-degree weather, but there's no wind, so it's dry cold, Joe. No wind. It feels great. The Campus Climate Assessment Survey is designed to assess how well our campuses are meeting several goals. Our goals are providing an inclusive and supportive learning and employment environment for students, faculty, and staff alike from diverse backgrounds. Last fall, the UW system provided funding to begin this process. It was piloted at 5 of our institutions, here at UW-La Crosse, at UW-Milwaukee, UW-Oshkosh, UW-Stevens Point, and the UW colleges at all of the 13 campuses in the UW colleges. And this spring, 4 more of our institutions will begin the process, Eau Claire, Parkside, River Falls, and Whitewater. It involves a comprehensive survey that is distributed to all students, staff, and faculty. The survey features a wide-ranging set of questions about campus life related to academic success, to job satisfaction, to the general campus environment, and much more. I thought I'd say, by way of introduction, a couple things, really try to address 2 basic questions, I think, about this work. The most basic ones, maybe. Why are we doing this, and why are we doing this now? The short answer, I think, is we must. If we as a state, if we as a country are going to grow or even maintain our competitive economic advantage, something in the current environment that we're all focused on, it's imperative that the educational pipeline expand to include a broader cross-section of our population. It's increasingly recognized that too many young people in the United States are not getting the education they need and that we need them to have, particularly in the light of our transition from an industrial manufacturing-driven economic system to a knowledge-based economy. It's widely accepted now that to ensure student success, they must acquire the skills, knowledge, abilities, habits of mind that include multicultural competence and the ability to work and live side by side with people who represent diverse cultures and perspectives. We also recognize that an inclusive and supportive learning and working environment plays a very significant part in the recruitment and retention of talented students, faculty, and staff. This whole project encompasses issues of race and ethnicity, of gender, of religious affiliation, socioeconomic background, veteran status, and more. So that's the why, in my point of view. And let me answer the second question I posed, why now? Because I think it simply cannot wait. If the issues identified by this survey, and you'll hear some of them this morning, impact our current educational environment and the quality of the learning experience now, we need to act expeditiously to address them. I don't think we should look at these efforts, by the way, as something separate from what we're already doing to help all of our students succeed. Rather, they're an extension of the services and support that we already provide to enable student success. If demography is destiny, the climate in which the new demography on our campuses plays out will help define our destiny. That's why this work is so important. So to provide us now with more details on the initiative, I'll turn the floor over to two colleagues from UW System, Vicki Washington and Lisa Beckstrom.
Good morning. Thank you, President Riley and President Bradley, members of the board, and guests here at UW La Crosse. Lisa Beckstrand and I really appreciate the opportunity to brief you on the Campus Climate Assessment Project. We are pleased that Dr. Sue Rankin is able to join us and will be available to answer questions following this presentation. In the presentation, we will provide an overview of the process, briefly summarize the research model, and share common themes and illustrative examples of reported results from each institution. Before we begin, I'd like to personally express my sincere appreciation to the institutions that volunteered to work with us. Too often, institutions shy away from or simply avoid dealing with painful realities, and particularly sharing this information in public spaces can be quite difficult. Whether those results are known or unknown, it took a lot of courage to participate with us, and we want to express our thanks and appreciation for the institutions that agreed to do this. Research in higher education shows that creating a welcoming climate contributes to and maintains institutions with atmospheres free of pervasive, blatant discrimination, and support equal learning opportunities for all students, academic freedom for faculty, and the creation of knowledge. Studies have also shown the negative effects that hostile class and campus climates have upon success, especially for members of underrepresented populations at our respective institutions. Conducting climate surveys increases institutional knowledge about perceptions that students, faculty, and staff have about their experiences in classrooms, on campus, and in the workplace. We spend thousands of dollars recruiting people to our institutions to contribute to the vibrancy of institutional life. It's important to know what we must do to improve the climate and retain them. Why conduct a climate assessment? Two primary reasons: to foster community that supports development of leadership that is well prepared to succeed in a world that is increasingly complex, diverse, and multicultural, and to create an environment that is both accessible to and welcoming for underrepresented populations, environments where they feel a part of the community, know they belong, and realize that they can succeed and thrive, not just simply survive. The climate survey was conducted to provide participating institutions with information to assess their campus environments, understand and direct their efforts toward areas where they have room for improvement. To learn what the projected outcomes of this work are: to learn constituent groups' perceptions about campus climate, to understand perceptions of students, faculty, and staff about institutional leadership responses to campus issues and concerns, and to use these results to inform continuing work toward diversity and inclusion, such as the equity scorecard, the inclusive excellence strategies, and related initiatives that assess learning and opportunity.
To set the context, Rankin & Associates begins by reviewing previous surveys that have already been completed on the campuses They go through NESI, the National Survey of Student Experiences, HARRY, Higher Education Research Institute surveys, Women's Issues, Equity Scorecard. In addition, Rankin and Associates goes through campus newspapers to look at student letters to the editor to get a flavor of the idea of the climate on the campus. And then she works with campus committees on tailoring the survey to fit the needs of the specific campus. She works with them to develop marketing strategies and also talks to governance groups. That's followed by distribution of the survey and data analysis, and finally presentation of survey results, followed by action plans. Numerous studies and publications have confirmed the pedagogical value of a diverse student body and faculty on enhancing learning outcomes. Offering equal opportunities for all students and academic freedom for all faculty is key to creating an environment free from discrimination, and thus is a primary responsibility of our institutions. Rankin and Associates uses what they call the transformation tapestry model, which basically is premised on the idea that campus climate affects the following 5 areas, and those 5 areas also impact campus climate. Access and retention, which has to do with equity, inclusion, and academic success of underrepresented groups. Research and scholarship, encouraging diversity of educational and scholarly roles amongst faculty. Curriculum and pedagogy. Studies show that proactive educational interventions result in reducing harassment on campus. For example, women's studies programs often result in lesser harassment on campus. Intergroup and intra-group relations, fostering both of these and interactions between them. University policies and service. Institutions convey a sense of commitment to diversity and social justice by visibly, systematically, and proactively addressing issues of harassment through their policies. And finally, Rankin and Associates has added external relations, which has to do with the role of state financial and local, state, and national legislative agendas, trustee decisions, and the influence of alumni on climate. Basically, there are 4 areas of action that influence climate. Symbolic actions, that has to do with visible leadership roles. Fiscal actions, that has to do with human and monetary resources. Administrative actions, having to do with creating policies. And educational actions, that have to do with research, pedagogy, and curriculum. Go ahead. The process to date started a few years ago when the UW system became aware of bias incidents happening at several campuses, and they began conversations and put together a task force committee to investigate who does climate studies in higher education. They discovered that Rankin and Associates is probably the leading expert in the country that does multiple identity climate studies in higher education. Dr. Rankin has done over 70 studies at institutions of higher education, including NYU, U of M, some of the UC campuses. And in addition to running her consulting firm, she's a faculty at Penn State University and is widely published in this area. Sue, do you want to just raise your hand so people can see who you are? She'll be answering questions when we're done. Followed by the hiring of Rankin and Associates, we formed a climate study working group that involved representatives from each of the first 5 campuses, as well as representatives from UW system. Rankin and Associates came to the UW system and convened fact-finding reports, fact-finding groups and focus groups with all of our stakeholders from around the state. She developed the protocol and survey instrument in tandem with those groups. That was followed by administration of the survey, analysis of data, and most recently, presentation of survey results on the campuses.
Using a process similar to that which we use with the equity scorecard, the UW system solicited volunteers to pilot the climate study. 5 institutions volunteered to participate in this survey: UW colleges, all 13 campuses, UW La Crosse, UW Milwaukee, Oshkosh, and Stevens Point. I should note that 4 of the 5 institutions, colleges, Oshkosh, La Crosse, and Milwaukee, also implemented the equity scorecard process. So much emotion in here. Everyone at each institution was invited to respond to the survey. Institutions used various methods of communication and outreach, including the use of incentives to encourage student participation. The survey instrument included 87 questions. Each institution was able to add questions specific to its campus, environment, and context. The survey also used multiple choice questions and provided space for comments. There were both web-based opportunities to take the survey, as well as paper and pencil options. The use of paper and pencil options ensured that the survey was most accessible for anyone who desired to take it. The results of the survey informed information about personal experiences, perceptions of climate, perceptions of institutional actions, and allowed respondents to offer suggestions for change. In looking at these survey results, please be aware that in some cases the results are too low to generalize to constituent groups. And in cases where data are not reported for groups fewer than 10 individuals, so as not to compromise the identity of the respondents. During this presentation, we will present illustrative examples of some of the survey results. Requirements for brevity as a part of this presentation and the board report would prevent us from being able to provide a lot of useful information about the context at each campus. Another caveat to keep in mind when watching this is that each institution and each campus is unique, so comparisons across campuses are not useful or appropriate. A total of 13,469 people responded to this survey, and response rates ranged from 9 to 23%. The response rate for faculty was 34%, academic staff 42%, classified staff 40%, and for students 14%. It's important to note with respect to the student respondents that students of color responded at a much higher rate than majority students.
This is the total number of respondents by gender. There was about 67% that were women, 33% men. Our researcher tells us that it's more common for women to fill out surveys than for men to do that for some reason. In her campus presentations, Rankin noted that the number of transgender respondents was somewhat unique in that they felt comfortable enough to respond. So this is a positive thing on our campuses.
This graphic, the graphic in this slide depicts the share that each major racial ethnic group represents in the total number of respondents. Depiction of the data in this manner illustrates the proportionate representation, or share, for each group. Presentation of data in this manner is consistent with practice in the equity scorecard process. The definitions used to aggregate these responses are the same that we use for the IPEDS federal reporting system, the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System. This graphic illustrates data aggregating across racial ethnic categories for students and employees. In the UW system, employees who are people of color equal approximately 12% of the workforce. In the state of Wisconsin, people of color represent approximately 14%. Students of color are approximately 9 to 10% of all UW students.
Demographics show that we had a high number of student respondents with physical and learning disabilities, as well as those diagnosed with psychological conditions. This is about 7% total. And this information is important too because it's the first time that we're really collecting data on students and employees who identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual so that we can address the needs of these populations. This represents approximately 6%. There were successes uncovered at the 5 institutions. 72 to 87% of respondents indicated that they were comfortable or very comfortable with the climate. The majority of students indicated they were satisfied or very satisfied with their educations, and the majority of employees were satisfied with their jobs. There were also some challenges that were uncovered at the 5 institutions. The question is, what about the other percentage of students, the 20 to 30% of students who are not thriving at our institutions? What we found was that there was widespread institutional classism between and among peer groups, faculty, academic staff, and classified staff. There was also a high incidence of sexual assault occurring both on and off campus, and the majority of respondents who experienced sexual assault were most often students and most often women. Most respondents did not report the assault for the following reasons. They said they were too embarrassed, they thought they would not be believed, their perpetrators were their friends, or they blamed themselves. There were also numerous incidents of racial profiling reported on most of the campuses, and retention of students of difference, especially students of color and sexual minorities, was a challenge. And what was interesting here was that respondents in every group indicated that they observed this kind of intimidating behavior directed toward people of color and sexual minorities. So it wasn't just people of color who noticed this and sexual minorities, but it was white people in all populations.
Now we will share information from the participating institutions, and I want to underscore that these are simply illustrative examples. Among the UW College's staff members, more than 1/4 of staff members identified institutional status as the basis for the harassment they reported. Among sexual minorities, more than half of the LGB respondents indicated that harassment was based on their sexual orientation, while 1% of heterosexual respondents attributed the harassment to their sexual orientation. Provost Greg Lampe mentioned in seeing these results that the UW Colleges takes climate assessment very seriously and looks forward to initiating both institution-wide and campus-based dialogues to foster more inclusiveness. You'll hear more from La Crosse after Lisa and I finish this presentation, but we want to share with you a few of their results as well. 1/3 of UW La Crosse employees reported experiencing exclusionary, intimidating, offensive, or hostile conduct. And these are the employees responding to the survey. Of the employees reporting having experienced that conduct, a significant percentage felt it was due to their institutional status. Their status as instructional or non-instructional academic staff and classified employees versus faculty. The high number of students who were more likely to recognize sexual violence when it occurs are more likely to report it to a friend, counselor, or person in position of authority. Nonetheless, we submit that one event is too many, and we seek to create a campus free of sexual violence, as well as to educate students to encourage and support safe behaviors on and off campus. And we will continue to work toward these goals. At UW Milwaukee, 25% of the respondents believe they have personally experienced hostile, offensive, or intimidating conduct that interfered with their ability to work or learn on campus. The conduct reported was most often based on respondents' university status. 31% defined this as a position in the institution, with the greatest perceived harassment within status, meaning student against student, faculty against faculty, academic staff against academic staff. 51% of sexual minorities reported they experienced harassment based on their sexual orientation.
At UW Oshkosh, overall, classified staff members and students of color were less satisfied and comfortable on campus than others. 1/4 of all respondents indicated that they were aware of or had observed harassment on campus within 2 years. Most of the observed harassment was based on sexual orientation, gender, ethnicity, race, gender identity, gender expression, and you can see the percentages. Chancellor Wells pointed out during the campus visit that the culture of drinking plays a significant role in sexual assaults, and this came out in the comments on the reports, the qualitative comments. Assault victims' comments indicated that they had been drinking, and when they knew the assailant, that person had been drinking too. So this is something that needs to be addressed. UW Stevens Point had the following concerns. 51 respondents believed they were victims of sexual assault, so that's 3%, and the majority of those did nothing. 17% of respondents believed they had experienced some form of exclusionary or intimidating conduct, and the majority of those did not report it. The greatest source of perceived harassment was generally within status, student against student, faculty against faculty. And 50% of LGB respondents believed they had experienced harassment in the form of derogatory remarks. And our researcher points out that while there's different forms of exclusionary behavior, it was interesting to note that with this particular group, LGB, it's still okay to say, oh, you're so gay, or you're to use derogatory remarks, and so that's unusual.
So next steps. I'm sure many of you, like those of us in system and on the campuses, are wondering why. And those are questions that the campuses will spend time learning more about over the next few months as they begin to develop action plans and to be responsive to these findings and some of the other assessment work that they're conducting on campuses. We expect that they will work with their diversity leadership committees and other stakeholders across their institutions to help develop these action plans. In addition, we've had 4 additional campuses to volunteer for a second round of the climate assessments. They are Eau Claire, Parkside, River Falls, and Whitewater. We estimate that they will start some of the planning work after next year, in the 2008, and will probably implement the survey itself sometime, possibly late or early spring or next fall. They're still negotiating what works best for them given current workloads and other constraints. So with that, we are available for questions, and following us will be Carmen Wilson and Barb Stewart. And I think maybe we'll hold questions until the very end. That probably makes the most sense. And they will share with you findings from UW-La Crosse. Thank you.
Welcome. My name is Barbara Stewart, and I'm an Associate Dean for Campus Climate and Diversity. And Carmen Wilson and I are going to present a little bit of information that's particular to UW-La Crosse today. So we'll proceed. Thank you. First of all, we'll start with the good news. We're gratified that the majority of our employees and our students, as you can see by the chart, are overwhelmingly satisfied with the institution, the department, and the class climate. So in terms of institution climate, you can see that our students are very satisfied. It's slightly a little bit different for our employees. Certainly for the department climate, again, there's satisfaction there on both ends and both groups. And for the class climate, we have satisfaction, certainly more so for students than for employees. Some differences there, but that's the good news. But we also, as our earlier presenters mentioned, we have some challenges. And as you can see, there is a percentage of students and faculty who personally experienced exclusionary, intimidating, and offensive and hostile behavior. And certainly you can also see that employees are experiencing this to a greater degree than students. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Wilson.
Good morning. So we know that certain number of students and faculty and staff are experiencing some kind of exclusionary, intimidating, or offensive conduct, and it would be useful then to think about in what ways and who are these people and what kinds of conduct do they find intimidating. We looked at the differences in experiences of offensive, hostile, or intimidating conduct based on a number of different factors. And I'm going to take a minute to explain these particular graphs. We're going to see several of them. But the tan bars represent the percent of people within that group who reported they experienced some kind of offensive conduct. So, for example, for students, women students, the tan bar most to the left, 14% of female students said, I experienced some form of offensive, hostile, or intimidating conduct. Of those 14%, 47% said it was due to my gender. Okay? And the numbers of students are below. So the numbers of students female students who experienced such conduct, you can see is 201. The numbers who said it was due to my gender was 95. So 95 of the 201 is 47%. Everybody with me? Good class? None, right? Now, the catch then is to look, much like in an equity perspective, to see how does that compare to the other group. So in this case, the male students. So about an equal number of male students are reporting that, yes, I experienced some kind of offensive conduct, but many fewer of them are saying it was due to my gender, and that wouldn't be particularly surprising. Only 16% of them are saying it's due to my gender. We see a similar pattern among women and men employees, although it is not quite as distinctive. There's not quite as much of a gap as there is for students, but you will see that more women employees in general, 33%, are experiencing some kind of offensive conduct as opposed to men. We also looked at differences due to institutional status, so students, faculty, instructional academic staff, non-instructional academic staff, and classified staff. Again, for students, about 14% said I experienced this form of conduct, and about 13% said it was due to my status. So that's pretty even. But you can see there's quite a bit of difference between faculty and the other classifications, employment classifications. So 41% of faculty are saying I've experienced some kind of offensive conduct. Only 22% said it's due to the fact that I'm a faculty member, right? 26% of instructional academic staff said I've experienced such kind of conduct, and almost half of them said it's because of my status as an instructional academic staff. And we have similar patterns for non-instructional academic staff and classified staff. So this really illustrates that sort of classism that Lisa and Vicki were talking about a bit earlier. And like the other campuses, we were no different. Most of the time, the instructional academic staff, non-instructional academic staff, and classified staff said it's people within their own ranks who are the perpetrators of this conduct. We then looked at race. Again, well, one thing that's notable here that is not necessarily true for the other graphs as explicitly is that there's quite a bit of difference in the percent of students and employees of color who are experiencing any kind of offensive conduct as compared to students and faculty who identify as white. So 34% of students of color said I've experienced some kind of offensive conduct. Only 12% of white students said I've experienced some kind of offensive conduct. The split is not quite as great for faculty, but the pattern remains. And again, the students of color are saying it's due to, the majority of them are saying it's due to my race or ethnicity, whereas white employees and white students generally are saying, no, I've never experienced offensive conduct based on my race. Sexual orientation, again, similar pattern. We see that LGB, lesbian, gay, bisexual, both students and faculty are reporting offensive conduct at much higher rates than our straight students and employees. And again, especially for students, but also for employees, it's based on that sexual identity. And finally, we looked at disability. And once again, we see yet the pattern as well, that more students and employees with disability are reporting, I perceive, some kind of offensive conduct than students and employees without disabilities. And for students specifically, the majority of those people reporting that they experience such conduct that is based on the fact that I have this disability. One of the things that I would caution about is that some of these numbers are fairly small, and it's not that they are not meaningful. They certainly are meaningful, and they point to issues that we will want to discuss and think about how we might address. But they are smaller numbers in part because those populations of people are smaller. So there aren't as many people on campus, for example, with disabilities as without, and so that's why you see some of those small numbers there.
The next thing we'll talk about is we wanted to know in what form the perceived offense or hostile or intimidating conduct was taking place. And what you see before you are the top 5 forms of conduct most frequently reported. And as an aside, I work a lot with students, and anecdotally they have shared certainly these different situations, and all of these things come out in different conversations, and certainly to see this just makes sense, because that's what our students are saying are happening to them on campus and off campus as well. But deliberately ignored or excluded, feeling intimidated or bullied, stares, derogatory remarks, feeling isolated or feeling left out when in working groups are the forms that we most frequently saw through the survey data. Another striking result that we found, and you heard earlier some of the comments around sexual assault, that 96 respondents indicated that they were victims of sexual assault, and 91 of those respondents were women, 86 were students. And so, again, confirms some of the things we've already known about what's going on our campus in particular, but certainly it gives us motivation further to seek resources and to seek solutions to this situation. In addition, we learned that it overwhelmingly, and maybe not overwhelmingly, but certainly happens more off campus than on campus. The offender was another student, and so that certainly supports what we've learned anecdotally as well. And what did you do? And this is something that Carmen and I have spent a good amount of time talking about here lately, is that over 90%, if you add up the figures, did not seek resources. Overwhelmingly thinking that perhaps there's not anything that they could do, or not knowing what resources to seek out. And so it just suggests that we need to get our students more in the loop and help them to understand how they can access resources and what's available on our campus. And then the comments, and you heard some of this earlier as well, why they did not report sexual assault. Many of them offered up the notion that they would not be believed or feared reporting the incident. Several commented that they were too embarrassed, or they just wanted to forget that it happened. Several said that they reported incidents. They did not report incidents because the perpetrators were their friends and didn't want to get them in trouble, which is, again, troubling. Still, others wanted to blame themselves for the assaults. If they just hadn't wore what they were wearing, or if they hadn't been drinking, that wouldn't have happened. And we have some final thoughts and comments. We are moving forward with next steps. We're excited. We've had several folks come up and acknowledge to both Carmen and I that they're willing to serve on an implementation team. We hope to gather the team in early January to begin looking at the survey and looking more closely at what we can do in action steps. I want to say one of the most significant things I think that Dr. Rankin shared with us is that we need to take small steps, but take steps, and choose things that we can achieve in terms of action steps, and be very clear and transparent about that. So that's what we're hopeful in being able to do.
One of the first steps that we took after Sue came to present the results was to set up a web-based survey form to ask the campus about their feedback. Once they saw the results, what did they think? And also then to volunteer for this task force. And Barbara and I have been talking about making sure that we have the right representation on the task force, very broad representation, and that hopefully, and Sue has emphasized this as well, that we think about 1 or 2 or 3 priorities. I'd like to say 1 because then I know people will come back with no more than 3, right? If you give them 3, they'll give you 5 back. But something that is actionable in the short term as well as long term. So it'll be important for us to keep focused. And I'm sure that what we have shown you today is just a small piece of the results. We have many more results that are also very interesting, and I'm sure that that group will work diligently with all of the results to decide where we go next. So, thank you very much, and we'll turn it back over to Vicki and Lisa for questions. Yes, and Sue. Okay.
Questions?
All right. Yeah, Regent Crane.
Certainly, all of this is of great concern, and that has been very well expressed by the way the report has been presented. I want to spend a few moments on the sexual assault issue. Just seeing that number 287 out of is just an astounding thing to see. And it seems to me that we're talking about physical violence. If you're using the word assault, we're talking about physical violence, which is not even, the word climate doesn't even adequately express, I think, the dimensions of that issue. I just find that terribly disturbing, and the reporting issue is also disturbing, and it seems to me that telling a family member or a friend is not reporting. We're talking about something much more fundamental than that, and the fact that such a high percentage of mostly females, but I realize it happens to males as well, our students is also very, very alarming, and somehow or other I think those issues require a different focus from all our institutions.
May I respond? Hi, I'm Sue. Nice to meet you all. Thanks for inviting me. I also want to say it's not unique finding to Wisconsin. And in my work around the country, I am convinced that we now have a rape culture on college campuses that we aren't talking about. And so I want to point out that, again, it's not unique to Wisconsin or to one of the individual campuses that we've worked with so far. It's an alarming statistic, I agree, and it's one we need to address. And I believe it's also in relation much to alcohol. Given the other research we've done around the country and also from national statistics, what we found is that this most often happens reported out on a campus first year, first semester, first 6 weeks. And so I think that information from the national research is also striking one, and we can do a little more action-based initiatives in regards to that. So.
Just one other comment in the Crosse statistics. I've had some background in sexual assault, and so I have a special concern, I guess, about that. But and I do understand the point that it is often someone you know.
Exactly.
But there were 23 people on that graph that said it was a stranger.
Well, let me respond to that, if I might, because the stranger actually wasn't a stranger. In the comments, it was that they were too drunk to know who it was. And so in many cases, it's someone that they may or may not have known, or they went to a party and saw the person, so they didn't know who the person's name was and identified as being a stranger. And they could answer more than one in those slides, too, so multiple responses were possible.
If I could just make a comment here. I think that the sexual assault data here is, as you point out, very, very disturbing. But this is not news to us. I think if you talk to any of our chief student affairs officers on any of our campuses, they will tell you that they know that this is going on, that they're trying to work to create the environment to have people feel comfortable about coming forward, that they have some level of services in place already. What I think this study does for us is shine a light on it and give us that more of a sense of urgency at all levels of our institutions, including this board, in dealing with these issues. And that's part of the process of doing the survey and bringing these data forward. In many cases, with not just this issue, but many of these issues, the data that we've seen confirms what we believe we know is going on our campuses.
I would like to say one of the things that we're doing on La Crosse that I think probably impacted the numbers of students who reported out, we have a violence prevention specialist on campus through a grant that was in conjunction with Viterbo and WTC. And this person, Ingrid Peterson, has done a great deal of work in education, and I think that probably we are seeing higher numbers of students reporting because of that education. So I'm not convinced that the problem itself is getting larger, but that people are more willing to share, which is a good thing, right? And the more we can do to get people to report, and like you said, Regent Crane, to report to professionals is appropriate, because friends and family members just probably aren't cutting it. But again, as Sue mentioned, that's a national trend for any form of violence. Very few people report to prevention professionals.
During our campus visits, we learned that that's also true at several other campuses. So in many cases, the higher numbers can be attributed to the students reporting. At the same time, we recognize that it is still underreported across the board.
Regent Smith and then Regent Bartel.
Just to follow up on a question with perhaps Dr. Rankin, you indicated comparing or talking about whether ours, what your findings here were unique, or what, because you've done obviously a lot of other of these studies. Could you kind of talk about how we compare our system as comparing to some of the other studies you've done, and if there's anything that stands out about our system?
And I'm smiling because that's the first question every president asks me too. How do we compare human nature? And I will go back to what Vicki mentioned in the presentation. That I'll give an example. Two of my other places I've worked are Iowa State and Oregon State, who are sister institutions for all kind of benchmarking purposes, right? Academic, curriculum, et cetera. But if you've ever been in Ames, Iowa, or Corvallis, Oregon, they're very different places in regards to these kinds of issues. And so I refrain and try not to do comparisons. What I do point out are where I think there are unique findings. And that will be pointed out in the full report that we are finishing at this point. It will be available for you in January. So that aggregate will have a very detailed information about how and where I think you might be unique in those findings. I will say the ones that were presented today are ones that I'm finding around the country. So I would say that of the challenges that we brought up and the successes, that those are similar across the board. So so thank you for your I didn't really answer your question, but there you go.
You did. You will, I'm sure, in that report.
Regent Bartel.
Thank you. I very much appreciate this climate assessment study. I think it's very important to call attention to these matters. Let me ask some methodology questions, if I could, to Dr. Rankin. Just briefly, is it reasonable to expect that participants in a study like this would be more likely to respond if they have positive responses than those who don't, who just, this doesn't involve me? That's question number one. I don't know, I'll run through them real quickly. Secondly, is paranoia considered in assessing these things? Because I noticed that some of the responses are, I get stares, I'm being ignored. Sexual assault is one thing, but being stared at is, I mean, that, I don't know if anybody's staring at me right now. And the third question is, and this I guess is surprising to me, why would it be that employees would experience more exclusionary conduct or offensive conduct than students? I mean, I would think that is not intuitive to me.
Okay.
So those are my three questions.
Let me answer the stairs one first. And I don't want to make light of that because, in fact, if you work with students, especially students of difference, that's where you find that they are experiencing things most often. They're being left out, they're being ignored. And look at these things together. Climate is a construct. You just can't say, measure one thing and that's climate. There's many things that come together that actually, in my research, talks about how climate is measured. I'll give you an example of one of the things that came out of one of the campus's comments, and I encourage you to read some of the qualitative pieces because they really do give voice to some of the number data. And one was an African-American woman who was in a class, a student, and the prof said, get into groups. And she was left out. Now, as other students in the class may not have seen that happening, but to her that was incredible. And the stared at piece, I'll give one funny thing and then one serious one. The funny one is I have a student I work with at my own campus who is unique in her attire and in her presentation. She has more piercings. I couldn't find many holes in my body to put piercings in, and as many tattoos as she has piercings. Purple hair one day, green the next day, and usually dressed in different kinds of attire than the conservative Penn State University attire that you usually see on campus. And she said, "I'm really mad I get stared at all the time." And I'm like, Jen, look at yourself and understand that might be a little challenging some of the folks in central Pennsylvania to see. Now, that's one of the stares. The more serious one is, I can't be different on my campus. I must assimilate or else I stand out, and therefore I am singled out often as unique, troublemaker, adversarial, whatever it might be. Now, I'm from Brooklyn originally. Even when I go with a student from Brooklyn to the registrar's office and say, hey, I need this stuff, I need it right now, and just like, the Pennsylvania person's like, whoa. Okay, so I think part of this is cultural and increasing knowledge and understanding, awareness about different cultures, whether or not it's racial, sexual minority, part of the country I come from, differences. Okay, so I think that's kind of the stereotype. Anyway. The employee, and that's something I found over the last probably 7 years. I've been doing this for 20 years, over the last 7 years of the data we've collected. And that data is indicating that we have silos in higher education. We have faculty, staff, student, administrator, if I pick 4. Within those silos, we have silos. And there are no communication between silos or across silos. And the most disenfranchised group on campus are classified staff across the country. And when I do these presentations, and I've done, I know at one campus, whose name I won't mention, I think I did 12 or 13, Chancellor Wells, in a 2-day, in a 2-day period. But we hit everyone on campus. It was very enlightening that they were packed. Those presentations were not just attended by those who you might say are the ones who are positive and or negative. They were across the board, so it's just an interest in this. And staff members were almost applauding that we were actually thinking about them in these kinds of studies, and that they were saying, I feel devalued, underappreciated, and invisible often in my workplace. And the contributions I make to this campus oftentimes I think are overlooked. So I think that's kind of the staff one. Did I miss one?
Yes, the first question.
Which was?
Positive.
The paranoia piece and the positive negative, we are very clear these are confidential surveys. And we go to great lengths to maintain that confidentiality. And one of the reasons that you do this with me, I think, is that we couldn't do it internally because no one filled it out, because they're afraid of repercussions if someone could identify their comments or their responses. So I don't think that the paranoia piece or who responds to them, I think based on the number of folks who identify as being very happy with the climate as the positive folks. And we have also then those another 20% who say, here are why I'm not comfortable. And I've got the question.
If they're unhappy.
If they're unhappy, no, I don't think so. I've seen this across the board now. I mean, I think you've seen both things, both positive and negative. So, and the response rates of faculty and staff were off the charts for Wisconsin. I don't get those kind of response rates. Faculty don't answer anything. So, faculty responses were very high across system.
Yeah. And
Regional
I would remind you, too, if you remember some of the early slides, they showed that 78 to 80% of the respondents said they were happy. It's the other quarter that we're really concerned about in this particular assessment activity.
But the fact that they were happy doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't experienced.
Correct.
Oftentimes it's, we find, a good example, we find the campus climate welcoming, warm, happy, I'm cool with the place, okay? And then we say, but no, it's racist, sexist, heterosexist, et cetera. So their personal, perhaps day-to-day kind of things may be okay, but overall the institutional climate they find as being something that may not be conducive to their being successful.
Just a little more clarification on the methodology, and then a question about something in the report that we have received that's in the colleges section. But on the methodology, could you go through how the survey was conducted? Were each group of people, faculty, students, staff, given a piece of paper, and then they turned it in? How was this, and how does it become a representative sample, let's say, like in a public opinion poll?
Okay, good, great question. Let me offer that I did provide for system, an article I just wrote for Journal of Higher Education that discusses the process of the model, the conceptual model used. It's based on empirical data that was done in a study in 1998 that I did. So that's kind of the basis, that foundational piece of the model that I won't bore you with here. In regards to the actual survey methodology here, I work with each campus. The survey was created over a 7-month period with the CSWG original committee, which was 2 representatives from each institution. Survey by committee is not a recommended way to create surveys, I will tell you that. We created that based upon questions a bank of questions that I already have that are valid, proven valid and reliable, et cetera, based upon previous research. We then contextualized those to fit more the UW system, and then even further down with each campus, look at their campus and make them fitting to the campus. They also could add additional questions if they wish to. An invitation to participate was sent out by the Chancellor and or the Provost and or the Student Affairs person, whoever they thought was the best person, or multiple folks.
A physical invitation, a mailing?
It was an email that was sent to every person on campus. The diversity leadership on campus then, and frankly, I'll say this, that if a chancellor sent a student email to fill a survey out because they get so many surveys, they probably would delete it. No disrespect intended. So we encouraged that the DLC committee on each campus made up people who had some power, influence, et cetera, within their own constituent communities, and they re-forwarded that note to their groups, encouraging participation. Response rates, I found using Billman's research or Pasquarello and Terenzini, whoever you wish to use, indicate that if in fact I offer incentives, maybe I'll get more responses. I disagree, and so do they. In many cases, it's best in this case to get people involved about why is this important. As an educational institution, why is it important to me? So holding some teachable moment kind of things before the survey came was also encouraged and was done at many campuses. So that invitation had the URL link in it. They could go to the link then, and it also offered, if you want a paper and pencil, where you could get that to fill it out instead. So there were 2 methods by which they could get those in. Every 2 days, I forwarded to each campus diversity leadership committee by position the frequency representation. So they knew if they had more students or staff filling it out, and they could do a more targeted invitation for the following week. So that's kind of the overall method. Does that answer your question?
You said you were from Brooklyn.
I am.
Okay.
Is that too fast?
Yeah.
I'll try and bring it down from 33 and a third for you.
Okay. How did they fill out the survey?
The survey is an online survey. They fill out the survey online, and then they submit it. When it's submitted, it goes to my server, which is the IP address is then struck from the server, so we have no idea who the person was who filled it out.
Okay. Here's my question. It's wasn't in the slides, but on the colleges portion, something jumps out here, and it brings up the question of the representative sample. It says 62% of employees felt that providing on-campus child care services would positively affect the climate. Mm-hmm. That would be quite stunning if it was 62% of all employees. But we don't know.
Respondents.
Respondents, yes, we know that. But for Chancellor Wilson, will he know which of his campuses where this was a real issue, or how is he going to use this information?
Good question. Let me offer, I think, and I'll actually talk to Greg, is that the individual campuses at each college got their own report. What you see in your report is the aggregate of those. Greg Lampe and the Chancellor actually asked me in June if I would do individual reports rather than do just an overall report, which we did. And I believe that at the Dean's meeting, when we presented that, they were very excited to have their own report to go back to their campus and do individually where those concerns might be.
Okay. So this was a question in the colleges survey, but not in the other campuses?
It was in every campus survey.
It's in every campus survey?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Regent Falbo.
I'd like to move over to the action plan moving forward. And I think it was mentioned that there was committees that were being formed at the institutions. And my question is if the action plan development process would be more effective individually by campus or as a group. I know you said there was distinct outcomes at each one, but I guess I'm going to your silo theory to say could it be more effective in a more global silo without the silos?
Two responses, and then I'd like to ask Chancellor Wells if he would speak to your issue. One is, Sue mentioned we'll get an aggregate report of all the campus responses in January, and at that time I think we'll be better able to identify systemic issues that can be addressed more globally, as you defined it. I know that Chancellor Wells is already in the process of developing follow-up action planning, and I'd like to ask him to talk with you about what he is embarked in at the moment.
While he's coming up, may I also offer that there are best practices already happening around system. So if there's an issue on one campus or a concern that came up on your report, I've tried to offer, given my meetings with everyone over the last 2 years, that, wow, La Crosse is doing a good job here. Why don't you look at what they're doing, or, La Crosse is, or Milwaukee is, or Stevens Point, so you can kind of share those resources.
Thank you, Regent Davis, this is the first time they've let me sit at the table, so I appreciate that. Don't get used to it, okay.
Feel slightly excluded, Chancellor.
You're embarking on my time. No, just quickly, what we're doing, and I think all the campuses are doing some variation of this, but one of the things on climate studies is you have to extend the window of the opportunity to improve the campus, because there'll be initially a lot of discussion, a lot of concern when the results first come out, and usually it's a one-day newspaper story, and people go their merry way. The other thing that happens on the climate studies, in my experience too, is that people at some level a sigh of relief. 80% of us, the climate's fine, we love the place, it's wonderful. The other 20% aren't satisfied. And then the people who are very concerned about the climate sometimes get upset that the results are so good. 80% of the people think everything's okay. And then others think that there's nothing really much to do because most people are pleased. And therein lies the problem. The fact that most people think the climate's wonderful means that we're not, those of us who think it's wonderful, are not sensitive enough to the significant minority of people who have problems with the climate. So you have to keep the information alive and discussed and used so that you can change the things in the campus. The other thing that happens, and one of the things I like about Dr. Rankin's work, this is a very comprehensive climate survey with multi-dimensions, and typically people get, for understandable reasons, very concerned and upset with sexual assaults. And we could talk a lot about that. Regent Crane, actually, it's a lot higher than is actually reported in those situations. We still have on our campuses, we had a student editorial in our paper the other day that believes there's no real evidence between sexual assault and alcohol abuse in our campus. It's just unbelievable. But that's why getting the comments out, because we haven't seen the comments yet, are going to be important in that. But the problem is that tends to overwhelm everything else, all the other richness in the data. In terms of the issues and concerns of LGBTQ, people of color, classified staff, and so on. So you have to keep it going. So what we're doing is we have put a directive out to all of our deans, our vice chancellors, our diversity groups to file a report back by the end of January on action. What are we going to do with this? What are you going to do differently? What is your unit going to do differently? What would you like to see the university at large do differently? And then we're going to ask the student groups who are working on that, because they don't come back into play in a full-time way on our campus, because we have an intersession by the end of February to do the same thing. We're going to use that information, that actionable information, in our new Inclusive Excellence Plan, which is going to be the successor to Plan 2008. So that's the way we're keeping it alive, not letting it go away, that type of thing. And we have also individuals can come up on, we have a SurveyMonkey area set up with a set of action questions. What should we do with this? So any individual can anonymously make recommendations too.
Thank you.
Regent Davis.
First of all, I want to echo something that Vicki said earlier, and that is to commend the 5 initial campuses for having the courage to take on this issue that I'm sure was uncomfortable at many points in time. So I really sincerely want to thank them for stepping forward, and I also want to thank the 4 who are coming up next and participating, because to Mike's point, when we talk about an overall approach from UW Systems by having most of our campuses take a look at themselves in this very empirically researched way, and then to then act upon that data, will mean that overall we should be better than where we were prior to the initiative. So I'm really happy about the 5 and really happy about the 4. And I also had a couple of questions. One was the transformation tapestry model had the 4 or 5 phases. And what I wasn't clear in reading the report or the presentation is, are we doing those 5 phases or 4 phases or not? And then my second question, I'll do like Jeff and just get all of my stuff out here, is to ask the point of view of what should the board do and what is our role in, for example, establishing a sense of urgency around this. Your thoughts on that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
The answer to your first question is yes, we are looking at all 5 phases. The beauty of this model is it aligns very well with work that is already in progress. So as you heard Chancellor Wells talk about the scorecard, the follow-up to Plan 2008, meaning inclusive excellence, we will look at each of these components, and the survey results will inform our planning and work in those arenas.
Mr. President.
What other question?
Could we get a copy of the survey?
Of the actual survey instrument?
They are public and are available,
Certainly,
yes.
we'd be happy to make those available.
Right.
Okay. Yes, Regent Davis.
You wanted to hear what the first one, the second?
Yes,
my
the
other
second.
question was? What's the role of the board? And
that's
what should the board do, and what is our role, especially in establishing urgency around these topics? Point of view. Kevin can answer it.
Mr. President?
Well, I mean, I think this is the beginning, and part of the reason we wanted to do a major presentation today to the board is so you would kind of be right at the front of this process. I mean, we were just beginning to look at these results ourselves on the campuses that have participated in the first round, and I see this as part of our ongoing effort at transparency, to be a transparent public institution serving the public across all of our operations. And when you're transparent, you've got to look at the tough stuff that people are seeing, and maybe in ways you're not, and confront it and do something about it. So I think the interest and the good questions you've had today are fodder for us to go back and work with the campuses now that are in the first round, and then get the second round through and talk to others who might be interested later on. This will be an ongoing process, and as Dr. Rankin was saying, in my experience, a lot of what we see here are endemic issues on campuses across the country. So I'm hopeful that as a system, if we can confront this with Dr. Rankin's help in the way we are, we can be national leaders in finding some of the solutions and improving the behaviors and the climate that we need to improve so that we can get more of our students interested in coming, staying, and being successful and graduating.
And I've been around the country a couple of times, and in Wisconsin over the last year and a half. What I'd like to say in a public forum is I am totally impressed with the amount of work you are doing to address these in a way that looks in the mirror and you're not afraid to do that. There aren't many campuses, and I do applaud the first 5 and the next 4, for you're looking in the mirror, and I'm very clear in the beginning of this process that this needs to be transparent from the beginning, in that everything that I find, I report. No one said you can't publish this or you can't print this in the report. It wasn't bought off by the administration to print the good stuff. Okay, I put in the things that were important to look at. And I think those are incredibly positive things for a system to take back as being a positive thing. To your point, though, about the board's influence, you saw external relations as kind of in a red bullet at the bottom of the tapestry model. Because of the last 5 years, you as a group and other pieces outside of the actual campus, if you will, are influencing climate by their interest, by having me here. I don't get to speak to all the boards when I go to these places and do this work. So just the fact that you're interested is also a very positive thing. I want to commend you for inviting me to come today. I'm very pleased to be here, and those are really positive kinds of things I want to make sure that I had out there. So.
Good. Thank you. Regent Spector, and then we ought to wrap it up and move on to the...
I just want to follow up on Danae's point very quickly. We spent some time at our last meeting in the Education Committee talking about revisions to our administrative rules about discipline and violation of campus rules and penalties for that. And it came out at that time that the administration feels strongly that the best approach to that is not only to make sure those who do wrong are disciplined in a way, but to educate them. That education, particularly with us as an educational entity, is crucial. And it strikes me that the same idea applies here, to go to what Danae is saying, that if we as a board push Kevin and you hard for educational approaches to this, maybe we'd make a real difference over time. More than, not that reporting isn't important, not that all this, it is, but we need to do more than that too. We need to have a program to educate educable people who we have about why it's not only the right thing to do to not behave this way, but it's in the interest of all of us. We're just going to have a better school, we're going to have better production, we're going to have, it's like any entity. There are strong reasons to educate them about it.
Let me offer that the JA research, Digital Affairs research, also points to that most of the research says that it's not about what the consequence is, but how well the student understands what they did, or how it affects them, the campus, et cetera. And I also will point to the curriculum. You know, it's only one time that we have students when they're a deer in headlights, okay? First year, first semester. And I've been doing this for I've been teaching for 30 years at Penn State, so, and I teach first year seminars, and I'm a great proponent of those, if they're done in a way that lets us reach the majority of students, because we do a good job of providing information and services for our marginalized students, in whatever way might be marginalized. But what about the people in the middle? No, we're missing the majority, in my opinion. And so one way to do that is when you've got them and you can talk to them and educate them around, this is what it means to be a good campus community member at Oshkosh, at La Crosse, at Stevens Point, wherever it might be. And when you educate those students about what that means, what do I bring to the institution? The reason that you don't see things happen, if they're happy and comfortable, is because they don't see those things happening because it's not part of their lens. How do we broaden that lens for students, help them think critically about what they bring to campus and how I can be a better community member? So I think curriculum and education that's why I do what I do. So thank you for acknowledging me.
One more question from Regent Thomas.
Just actually a couple of comments. These results are not surprising at all to me. They reflect the experience that I have had on campus and the experiences of other people I've talked with around on the Madison campus and across the system. I think in reaction to one point about the difference between student experience and professionals on campus, that there's a different role when you're working someplace or when you're paying quite, several $1,000s to be at that place, and that maybe we're going to need to look at different approaches for those two different goals or two different groups of people. And the other thing I would say in response to this, somewhat different focus on sexual assault and on other identity-based issues is that when we address climate within the context of everyday actions, maybe the smaller things or what we consider to be less severe, maybe staring or maybe these other incidents that accumulate to make a really tough climate, if we address those first, we're going to change the climate and the legitimacy of those larger assaults and those larger moments.
Thank you. Well, let me thank Dr. Rankin and all our colleagues. Vicki, did you want to say anything?
No, I think Colleen's comments were perfect closing words. Thank you.
Thank you all for the hard work you're doing.
Well, the next item on our agenda is going to be a presentation from UW-La Crosse. We have, I think all of us have been familiar over the years of the rather impressive statistics that UW-La Crosse is able to report, their retention and graduation rates, their high rates of study abroad, but now we're going to see a presentation to take us behind those numbers and get a more full appreciation of what's happening on this campus, and I'd call upon Chancellor Gao.
Thank you, President Bradley. I noticed there's quite a big group of people who I think are coming in. So you'll notice we did reverse the order, and normally we would start the day with our presentation. We typically wouldn't trade our time out, but for a faculty member from Penn State, you got to do that. Certainly wouldn't do it from anybody from the University of Iowa. But in any case, this is such a pleasure to have you here in La Crosse. And it occurred to me as I looked at my colleagues and some of the students, they're seeing what we do when we go off to Madison and the other campuses, and I'm delighted that they're here to take part in this. And I made a humorous quip the last time we were in Madison about, is anybody really paying attention on the web? And this time I know there is somebody paying attention on the web. The president of our student association, Kyle O'Brien, who is a regular attendee at Regents meetings and very engaged, unfortunately has to have back surgery, and it's kind of like having tickets for the big game and then you can't go. And I called him last night and he said he really wishes he could be here, and I said, Kyle, you can watch on the web, and he said of course he would be. So a special hello to Kyle, and we hope your back surgery is very smooth and a speedy recovery. And he's a great guy, and I know many of you know him, and we'll see him again in the future. We struggled with how to tell our story, and as President Bradley has said, oftentimes this is done through numbers, and we have some numbers that we feel are pretty impressive and hope you agree. But, you know, sometimes the numbers don't tell the whole story. And Albert Einstein once remarked along the lines of, sometimes we can't count what really counts. And we thought about that, and we also wanted to get you a flavor for the campus, and knowing that this is December, we assumed that a tour probably would not get strong attendance, although I am told Regents Thomas and Davis and Spector did brave the weather this morning to take a tour, and so we're delighted. But we thought through audio-visual techniques we can give you a sense of who we are and what we're about. So we're going to tell 5 stories, and those will involve international education, our move-in day, our student mentoring in the community, our student political activity, and also a very special story about a student who's overcome some very significant challenges. So to begin, we will turn to international education, and to do that, I am delighted to introduce to you the Director of our Office of International Education, Jay Locken. Jay?
Thanks, Chancellor Gala. It's a great pleasure to be here. International education has been an integral part of UWL. Let's take a minute to take a look at one of the largest international programs in the UW system. Over 10 years ago, UWL faculty, staff, and students recognized the changing world around them. UWL's story of becoming a leader in international education in the UW system and in the United States stems from a shared vision that the University of Wisconsin students needed to have the critical global competencies for the 21st century. It became clear to us to successfully internationalize UWL, we needed to have an integrated, multifaceted international education model, kind of a long name. So what is that education model? It means that we needed to recognize that all aspects of the university, the curriculum, English as a second language, faculty, students, administration, student life, are all part of the global village. It also means reaching out to community organizations like sister cities, international organizations, elected officials, the international businesses in the area. And as part of this, we recognize the view from the bluffs locally needed to be global. In creating this global view as a university, we strove to build institutional, philosophical, and financial support. Funds were set aside to create the International Development Fund for faculty and staff. This fund has allowed hundreds of faculty and staff the opportunity to present at international conferences, engage in faculty exchanges, develop new curriculum, and develop new international programs for students. No place is this shared vision more impressive with the leaders of our student association. Our student association confirmed their commitment to international education by making it a benefactor of tuition funding. UW is one of the few universities in the United States where differential tuition is earmarked for student scholarships and international undergraduate research. With the implementation of these programs, UWL began to receive increased recognition for its international efforts. In 2004, UWL was chosen by the American Council on Education to present in Washington, D.C. as a leading institution for internationalization in the United States. UWL's international vision also included public schools in the area, most notably the La Crosse School District. Both UWL and La Crosse Public Schools began to collaborate together to support the development of their internationalization models. This cooperation led to grants between the school district and the College of Business and Administration. And currently, our School of Education is developing a globally focused curriculum that will show that our teachers in the future have the global competencies necessary. We are also proud that UWL helps supports international efforts in our schools, and we're especially proud of La Crosse Northwood's International Charter School. It is an excellent resource for our students and the entire community. Study abroad is a critical part of the UWL story. In less than 10 years, we have gone from 100 students studying abroad to over 500. Students come to this campus with the expectation that they will study abroad regardless of their majors. Nearly a quarter of UWL students have studied abroad at graduation time. That's twice of our peer institutions. UW students also have the opportunity to study at top partner universities worldwide. Short-term programs allow students to be able to participate in study abroad programs without delay in their time to degree. International events on this campus play a major role in the La Crosse story. The International Student Banquet allows students, staff, faculty, and community members to sample the foods and customs from our international students. There are over 350 international students on this campus who literally bring with them the world to the classroom and to this community. They have an incredible impact on Wisconsin students who may never have met a person from outside their culture. International students also bring with them an impressive economic impact to Wisconsin universities and communities. Last year alone, according to NASA, the Association of International Educators, international students at UWL had an economic impact of $6.1 million. UWL's story is that the global village needs global citizens. Students need the cross-cultural skills, world languages, critical thinking skills, and international experiences to be successful. Our investment in international education today can yield impressive dividends tomorrow. But there's more to the story. One of our students, in his personal story, we had a chance to see through the eyes of an international student the impact that we've had on them, the true impact of the world we've tried to create working with them and to build global understanding. Let's go ahead and see that story.
My name is Vladimir Velkov, and I was born in Lviv, Ukraine, 21 years ago in 1987. And I am speaking to you from Geneva in Switzerland. I'm doing my master's degree in international relations. And let me tell you how I got here. One of the most interesting questions that I first ran into when I came to the United States was, why did you come to Wisconsin? Why did you come to Crosse or Trempealeau? It's so small. It's 1,000 people, 50,000 people in La Crosse, and I didn't know what to say honestly. But now, looking back, if you ask me why did I decide to come to La Crosse or Trempealeau or Wisconsin in general, I would say without any hesitation that because it has beautiful people, wonderful people that are supporting and that are welcoming and that have made a real difference in my life. I grew up in Ukraine, in the city of Lviv. It's in the western part, really close to the Polish border, and it's heavily influenced by Polish and Catholic culture, especially its architecture. It has a really long and really fascinating history, dating back to the 13th century when it was first founded. In terms of its charm and its personality, it has stayed the same. And it really reminds me of a really important lesson in life, that as we grow, as we try to do greater things and be better, we should always preserve some of the lasting human values. In Lviv, I grew up in a small apartment complex in a family of 4, where I still live with my older brother and father. I've been interested in learning political science for a long time because it just seemed to give the right instruments to create a more democratic society. I did not have a goal to go to the university there because it just seemed too distant and too impossible. But as it turns out, there is no such thing as impossible. When I realized that this is possible, I decided to go to University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. There's a very strong political science department, and professors made my experience really special. But not just them, it was of course the whole environment and the administration, the staff, and the rest of the students that I interacted with. Due to my preparation and really good first-class academic training at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, I was accepted for a 6-month internship at a renowned research institution in Washington, D.C. called Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. And I worked with one of their most dynamic units, the Cold War Project. And this, again, has influenced my personal growth and my future goals. Education at UWL and my experience in general, just interacting with people, has really influenced everything so much. And I had research experience. I went to Czech Republic, I went to Georgetown and Washington, D.C., and even now it continues to have its impact. It wasn't just, all about academics. It was also about socializing with people and getting to know the culture in the United States. And I'm so grateful. The team from the educational department organized a webcast of the entire ceremony that was streamed live on the internet. And my family in Ukraine, 8,000 kilometers away from La Crosse, was able to watch it live, and I felt their presence when Chancellor Gao was handing me the degree. It made it so personal to me. I definitely gained and benefited a lot from studying at UWL, but I also think that I was able to benefit others and give back to students in the community. I think that the best explanation of my story of education at UWL is that when I asked for support, I received a response, a very strong response. And I would like to leave you with a quote that I think really reflects this idea. It is by Elie Wiesel, a well-known author and a Nobel Prize winner. He said that the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And the opposite of art is not ugliness, it's indifference. And the opposite of faith is not heresy, it's indifference. And the opposite of life is not death, it's indifference. In my case, people did care, and look what happened. Look at the results. In my case, UWL and its caring people made a huge impact. They let me start with simple beginnings and come to something I have always been dreaming about.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce Carmen Wilson, our new academic planner, who will talk about the special events we use to kick off every academic year before classes begin. Hey, Carmen?
Hello again. This will be the last time I stand up here, I promise. If you spend much time with Joe, you've probably heard him say that UWL is a very popular campus. In fact, we get between 4 and 5 applications for every first-year student opening. And once students come here, they tend to stay here. Nearly 90% return for their second year. But what is it about UWL that students find so attractive? When asked, people here talk about the UWL family. We begin to create that sense of family with both parents and students on that very first day. The first day many people remember is move-in day. So come join us to see how we approach that special day of moving in.
That way. Okay, I made the mistake last time. I went all the way around. Okay, good morning. Okay, White Rock. With Team Mango on it, there's nothing we can't do, right? All right, so, yeah, all right. Mango. All right, where are we going? I'm going to help you with this. Hey, good, good. I never know who knows me and who doesn't. Settled in there?
I think so, yeah.
Hi, I'm Joe Gow, the Chancellor here.
Dave Green, the
Dave?
dad of...
The dad here?
Green, yeah.
Where's David? Welcome, I'm Joe. Good to see you. So we're going to 425.
Yeah, the fourth floor.
Yeah, that's right. I picked the wrong one here. 425. Okay. Yeah, I know. Twice in a row on this. Now, where are we going? Fourth floor. Oh, all right. All right, we're doing this. Just say take advantage of everything that's here, and we have lots of resources, and people want to help, as you see in this move-in day. And we've thought about the experience of the new student, and we want everybody to get welcomed real quickly and connected. Don't be isolated. And then of course school starts on Tuesday, and then you got to focus on your academics. And I always remind students that's the most important thing. We'll have fun, but also make sure that the studying gets done and the work gets done. And most students balance that very well. Yeah, thanks for coming to UWL. Okay. We just got somebody to say we could have gone to Madison, but can't.
Yeah, I know. I love that.
Yeah. Show that to the Regents, huh? I do not see blue residence halls or red residence halls. I see only one residence hall, united by a shared dream that UWL will be the greatest university it can be. See, this political thing, it kind of gets to you after a while. If someone grabbed them, they would just come right down. Yeah, that we got. I'll do a lot of things for the media, but not that, so, no. Dispute, you can say the Chancellor said you could have that size, okay? We got that going for us. Well, thanks for helping them all move in. I know that's really important to the parents. Boy, they say, wow, this is great, so.
They're really glad that we came out.
Yeah.
And thank you for helping.
Oh, I get a kick out of just seeing it all and lending a hand where I can. And I keep saying these shirts are my favorite. I judged that contest, and I said, that's the one. I don't know whether it won, but... Yeah. Well, see, that was like the first album that I had that I felt like, ooh, music, cool, It's Led Zeppelin 4.
We actually have a poster of you in our room. Advertising, we took it last year.
Just down here?
It was when you played your guitar at the Cellar.
Really?
I don't remember what that
Can I see it? That would be fun.
Yeah, I'd love to
all
show
right,
you.
Okay, we'll get that. We're going to... all right.
We were just talking about how we want to show you our poster.
Well, opportunity knocks. Tim, my man. Let the bear get his paws on you. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
So there you go. Well, I am. Wow, that is really cool. Thank you.
We're big fans.
All right.
We just thought we love your music.
Well, tonight I'll be out there with the children at the Chancellor.
I got my mojo working for the church, don't work on you. I got my mojo working for the church, don't work on you. I wanna love it so bad, don't know what I'm about to do yet. Gonna play my guitar.
you. I will confess, when I first saw that video, I said, gee, I didn't know I was that gangly or that goofy, so I don't know. But anyway, we're very proud, obviously, of the relationships we have with our students and our families, but even prouder of the relationships our students have in the community. And over 80% of our seniors and about 50% of the freshmen are involved in community service or volunteer activities. And it's my pleasure to introduce Garth Tymason and Shelley Wetzel to tell you more about a very special UWL community service activity.
Thank you, Chancellor Gowan. Welcome to our guests. As Joe said, my name is Garth Tymason, and I'm a faculty member in the College of Science and Health, and within that college, the Department of Exercise and Sports Science. And I'm one of the ones who's fortunate enough to work on a very regular basis, on a daily basis, with some of these numbers that you're hearing about, these very, very talented students. And also very fortunate to be able to work with a great group of faculty and staff who make it happen for all of these students. And in my area, in teacher preparation and working with children with disabilities, we also have the luxury of really relying on many, many different community agencies. And so I have the pleasure of introducing my co-presenter, Shelley Wetzel, who was very instrumental in starting this program 3 or 4 years ago with us. And Shelley right now is an employee as the family and program director at our local YMCA. And so it certainly takes many, many different people to make all of this happen at a university. We're very fortunate to live in our country. Food is readily available. Most people have leisure time. And we have freedoms that allow us to make many personal choices. Sometimes, however, these choices aren't in our own best interest, whether it be eating too much or being as physically active as we should. Now, I want you to be honest, everybody sitting here. I want you to be honest with me and tell me how many times in the last couple of weeks during that Thanksgiving holiday you said to yourself, I really need to be getting more physical activity. I know I shouldn't be eating this one more piece here. And as you kind of relax on that recliner and you got to work out with that remote control, right? Come on. Now, I know that's happening. Lifestyle choices have led to obesity and physical inactivity epidemics that impact our society with serious health and economic implications. These public health problems affect persons of all ages, and in particular our youth. The statistics are staggering and have ramifications beyond those from cancer, cardiovascular disease, and other common conditions. Unfortunately, persons with disabilities are even more vulnerable to physical inactivity and sedentary lifestyles for several reasons, including lack of programs, untrained staff, inaccessible facilities, and the cost of specialized equipment. Solutions for persons with disabilities require innovative and multidisciplinary approaches, including collaboration among higher education, community agencies, and family. And this is what you're going to see, a very collaborative program that's taken place. As we all know, one of the best ways to stick with an exercise program is to have another person or a group that we can count on to get us active and to keep us active. This extra push or motivation might come from a friend, a coworker, or from a mentor. UW-La Crosse has a physical activity mentoring program that is part of the solution to decrease sedentary lifestyles among children with disabilities. The program is an element of one of our many health-related and teacher education programs, and specifically part of our adapted physical education preparation program. Now, I want you to think of physical education as a public health. I want you to think of physical education as a public health intervention. Teaching and preparing school-age children to be active and healthy for a lifetime, whether or not disability is present. We're not talking about physical education or gym class that many of you remember, with boring push-ups or more laps than you really want to count, or traditional sports games, sports where many people were left out on the sideline, unfortunately. A blend of community service by faculty and service learning performed by students has created a dynamic physical activity mentoring program in our Department of Exercise and Sports Science. As you will see, this grant-funded program has a significant impact on UWL students and many persons in our community. It truly puts meaning to the numbers at UW-La Crosse.
The Physical Activity Mentoring Program for Children with Disabilities provides college students with amazing opportunities. It really does allow them to take the knowledge and the skills that they've learned from courses and apply it to real-world experiences. It is really a significant community health need that we touch on a daily basis. Future professionals get hands-on experiences while exposing children to physical activities outside of their typical school day. UW-La Crosse students interact with and educate kids and parents. This is a building block for their professional roles as future educators. Not only is the program a great fit for student service learning, but it's extremely beneficial for all families. The program guides parents to teach their child one-on-one and encourages families to increase their child's physical activity levels when their mentor is not present. Through this program, we are part of the solution to create a more active and healthy future for all persons. Garth and I may have initiated this 4 years ago, but without the students, the kids, and the families, the program would be nothing and not what it is today. We hope you enjoy learning more about the efforts and the UW-La Crosse students and faculty and what we've done.
Family makes us whole. Health feeds our minds and our bodies. Physical activity brings families together and promotes our well-being. Each of these helps to provide a sense of purpose and confidence. For many of us, we take these things for granted. An innovative physical activity mentoring program is helping bring happiness and pride to children with disabilities and their families. This mentoring program is at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. UWL students serve as mentors and are matched with children to help them meet physical activity needs and goals.
He started when he was very young. He was only 3. In fact, I think we were probably one of the first families to be a part of the mentoring program. At that point, he was nonverbal. He couldn't take direction. A lot of physical energy, but it was unfocused energy.
When he first started, he couldn't have the balance to lift a leg and kick a ball. He would just kind of walk through it. And now he'll go and lift his leg and kick, and he's just so proud that he can, do these skills.
He has developed social skills that he did not have prior to participating in the program, and he believes in himself. He has much more confidence when it comes to participating in physical activities, especially with his peers.
UWL students understand the importance of positive physical activity. They help children become successful and promote pride and lifelong involvement.
It means a lot to me to get out there and see him smiling and having fun in the programs and really growing. When he first started the program, he couldn't dribble standing still. He kind of slapped at the ball, and now he's really progressed into, we're getting him to walk with the ball, and we're really working on trying to keep his head up, and knowing that I really helped with that really is very rewarding.
There's so many activities I've done with him, from outdoor basketball, throwing, catching, fundamental motor skills when he was 3, and now we're reaching more of lifetime skills. I just think it's a huge benefit for him to know that physical activity can be fun and rewarding, and then later on down the road it's still going to play a very important role in his life.
The major purpose of the program is to increase a child's physical activity level, but the college student also benefits from their involvement in the program.
When I do get that full-time job and start my career as a full-time educator, I will be more experienced and more adept to the task at hand.
The mentoring program has granted me a ton of experience and professional development. It's given me the chance to get to know an individual child, make modifications, work with him, and grow a friendship.
as a mother of a child with disabilities, we really want our child to be normal and be accepted and to be able to interact like all the other children. And even if it's not at the level we thought it was going to be when he was born, you know, we all thought we'd be watching him play football and play baseball, and our dreams are different now. But now we can still watch him participate in sports and see him be part of a team and grow socially.
Just as a parent, to see the successes that Eric's had, just to see the smile that gets on his face, you just can't explain that.
As a mother of a child with a disability, it makes me so happy to see how happy he is that he can have a normal life like everybody else. All those kids deserve that. And that's all that my husband and I have asked, that he has a chance.
Family, health, and physical activity, each intertwined, and so important to those families who are challenged by childhood disabilities. For parents, seeing their children having the chance to be like any other child makes a world of difference.
I will tell you, I've had the privilege of meeting some of those parents, and you just can't believe the impact that we're having, so it's wonderful. We're also very proud of our students' involvement in the community in the political arena, and La Crosse has had the good fortune of having many political candidates and presidents visit here over the years, and those visits are very insightful, historic, and inspiring, and we'd like to show you some highlights.
Inspiring year because we've seen Americans take ownership in whatever way in this process. Whether it was for Barack or not, people were coming out and are coming out in record numbers. Young people are engaged in ways that they hadn't been. Folks who have been disenchanted in the political process for a lifetime have come up and said, this is a campaign that means something to me. And that makes me feel good. It's sort of like hope is making a comeback this year, and it feels pretty good.
Your lives are on the line in this. We've got big challenges at home and big challenges abroad. And Wisconsin has a reputation as a thoughtful, independent, genuinely progressive place, where people have their mind and their hearts engaged, where they have an eye on the future and their feet on the ground. And I have talked to you as straight as I could from my head and my heart tonight.
That's what this election's about. That's why I'm running for president. And if you will fight with me and work with me and roll up your sleeves, if all of you go out and vote today and tomorrow and the next day, I promise you, we will not just win Wisconsin, we will win this general election. And you and I together, we're going to change this country and change the world.
And now to tell you a little bit more about our student activities, it's a pleasure to introduce our professor of political science and somebody that the name will be familiar to you. He's a frequent commentator on Wisconsin politics, and that's Dr. Joe Heim.
Thank you, Chancellor. As I think a lot of you know, the La Crosse area has had a very rich and interesting political history over the years. Less well known, however, is the UW La Crosse's role in this history. Civic engagement and political activism has been one of the more notable features of this university for the last quarter century. The numbers regarding student voting for the last 3 major elections are particularly impressive. The campus ward, which is the 5th district, includes all the residence halls, and 2 other wards that contain significant numbers of students, have averaged 80 to 95% turnout over the last 3 elections. The campus wards had the highest numbers of votes in the city's 17 wards. I might also add that Barack Obama and John McCain had the highest voter totals in the city off this campus. So in other words, it's not just a one-sided party thing, it's both sides. It's no wonder that candidates are aware of this particular campus and its potential impact on elections. The number of local appearances by candidates and surrogates are substantial. While we could not accommodate Barack Obama's 15,000 people downtown La Crosse, or John McCain's 6,000 people in downtown La Crosse, we had visits by, as you could see, Bill Clinton, Chelsea Clinton, Michelle Obama, Governor Doyle several times, Congressman Ron Kind, and others as well. These are highlights of this year's elections alone. UW La Crosse has maintained a strong record of civic engagement for at least the last 25 years, with high record totals of high voters, campaign volunteers for various campuses, political and governmental internships, with students, by the way, on the campus, from the campus on both the City Council of La Crosse and the County Board of La Crosse for almost constantly for the last 20 years. In the most recent national survey of student engagement, known as NESSE, of 1,800 UWL freshmen and seniors, compared to 360,000 students across the country, showed an almost 2-to-1 ratio in responses that highlighted this engagement and role of the university that it plays in student learning of civic skills. So just how does this happen? How do we get to this particular point? Well, it's through many activities. Voter registration drives, get out the vote drives, basically. The campus debates, campus forums, class visits by candidates, all help to increase awareness and participation on the part of students. In 2008, we had on-campus debates between candidates running for the State Assembly, State Senate, and Congress. Most of these candidates, by the way, also had on-campus activities going on, getting out vote drives and other events as well. This high level of civic engagement takes a sustained effort and commitment over the years on the part of a large numbers of people. The student governments over the years and their leaders, faculty and academic staff, and I might add administrators, chancellors from Ken Linder of 1980s, Judy Kuipers of the 1990s, and Joe Gao have all recognized this and supported these efforts over the years. This fall, the interest and engagement of thousands of students and faculty and academic staff and administrators was particularly apparent by their involvement in major rallies by both Barack Obama and John McCain. And if I remember correctly, somewhere in one of these pictures is Joe Gao. Joe Gao, being a bipartisan sort of a guy, was at both the got his feet in both camps here. He was at the Obama rally and also the John McCain rally. The campus community is seen as a resource for political campaigns and also by area media. So just why is this important? Why is it important for a campus to be this involved? Well, I think this is important because of the role that the university plays in the lives of people. There are 3 reasons. First of all, we on this campus believe that civic education and involvement is a natural part of the educational process. I believe this is especially important for a public university. Secondly, we believe that it's part of our responsibility to train active and engaged citizens and leaders for the future, in both government and the professions as well. I could name a lot of state legislators and others who have been from this campus that have gone on to great careers. And thirdly, I might add that civic involvement adds to the university's influence in the political processes of both the region and the state. To both borrow and paraphrase a line from somebody, yes we can, and yes we should. And as long as I have a chance, I'd like to thank the Regents for coming to La Crosse, especially at this time of year. December is not great. Thanks very much.
you want an interesting experience, go to the Capitol with him sometime. Everybody knows Joe Heim, and so many legislators and staff people that he has taught, and what a beautiful guy. Everybody loves Joe Heim, too. And so I've been just so fortunate to come and have him as my Sherpa, as you will, at the Capitol. It's amazing. I know we're kind of running a little bit over, but we've saved the best for last, and you won't regret this. So if you hang in there, we'll get lunch to you. But the final story is one that involves extraordinary student success over some pretty substantial obstacles. And about 80% of our students tell us that UWL helps them with issues involving life and work and things outside the classroom. And this is one of those stories. And so I'm very privileged to introduce to you Amy Sullivan, who is going to talk about our self-sufficiency program.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share a story from my program, but also to share the program itself with you. I feel very fortunate to be the job that I have in the position of the director of the self-sufficiency program, and it is a college preparatory program that is unlike any other in the nation, and I know that because I've done the research. There are preparatory programs, but they're really none quite like ours. My job is to recruit, inspire, and then prepare low-income parents, mostly single mothers, for a college education. I work with social service agencies, schools, the media, and other like-minded organizations to offer a bridge to college for non-traditional students who are, for the most part, the working poor of our community. The Self-Sufficiency Program was founded in 1988 as an outreach program of the Women's Studies Department, where it still remains a vital part of our department. At that time, AFDC, or welfare as it was commonly called, was still in existence. The founders of the program knew that although many women on welfare had high school educations, the reason they kept falling back into the system was because without additional education, they could never lift themselves and their families out of poverty. For 20 years, our program has addressed the barriers that exist for poor women to access higher education and succeed at it. Time, location, and childcare options have all been considered carefully over the years. To this day, we offer free childcare. We meet in the evenings, but not too late. And our class costs nothing to attend. Although the end of welfare in 1997 created new challenges for our program, we continue to serve our students in much the same way we did when it was founded. We initially had a drop in numbers of students in the program, and in the last few years we're seeing a rise again. And I think that's because people are not making a living wage. Most SSP students are single mothers, but the program is open to men and women of all ages. The only criteria is that they have a high school diploma, they're self-designated as low income, and what I ask them is, would a college education increase your salary? And if the answer is yes, then they are considered adequate for our program. They also have to have a very strong personal interest in exploring the possibility of a college education, and they have to write an essay as part of their application telling me exactly why it is that they want to go to college. I'd like to explain first the three formal objectives of the program, and that is, one, to familiarize students with the nuts and bolts of college programs, admissions, and financial aid. Two, to engage in critical thinking, writing, and math skills. So I hire other people to come in and brush them up on math, and then we do a writing project that results in a research project about a woman in history. And then the third thing is that we customize a personal education plan that sets each student up for success. Not everyone can follow the typical model of traditional students. Many of them have to think, okay, can I quit my job and can I go to school full time? Can I find a part-time job? So there's so many variables that we talk about throughout the whole semester, really working collaboratively as a group. And although these things are the bones of the program, I believe it's the informal objectives that create the heart and soul of the self-sufficiency program. Our students find a welcoming space where they can air their fears and anxieties about returning to school. They find like-minded and smart classmates to dream and struggle alongside them. And they learn, most importantly, that their life experience up to that point is in fact a valid asset when considering college. They're parents. They know about multitasking. They just don't know that that is an asset when thinking about college. In the classroom, we read and analyze poetry, prose, history, and the media. We learn about the UWL campus, Viterbo University, Western. We learn about college admissions procedures and meet admissions directors, financial aid, stress and time management. And then most importantly to me is they meet other SSP graduates, like Audrey, who you will meet, who always come back and tell them, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, here's how you do it, giving them all kinds of tips and strategies for success. We tour the campus. I try to make them comfortable here at the largest campus in the area. With more than 350 graduates, the program has many and varied success stories. In the summer of 2000, one of our graduates and also a UWL graduate won a Gates Millennium Scholarship. She was one of 60,000 applicants nationwide, and she came through the self-sufficiency program. She is now an attorney in La Crosse, just as of last May. Another, Alicia Amon, who you can see on the screen, is currently in her last year of medical school in Missouri, and we're very excited about her graduation. Many of our graduates continue to live and work in this community, and we boast a high proportion of socially minded professionals, educators, nurses, social workers, and soon a veterinarian. 5 years ago, I discovered that when students were saying, can I get a scholarship, can I get a scholarship, there wasn't any. There are no scholarships for non-traditional adults who are trying to enter college. They can get them after they're juniors and they have a 3-point. And so my advisory board agreed to start one. And to date, our locally grown scholarship, which was named to reflect our region's rich agricultural bounty, has raised $50,000 to support our graduates. It's a money in, money out fund. The locally raised donations not only assist them with school expenses in their first 2 years of college, but it connects them to the broader community who support and cheer on their success. So the people who get the scholarships actually meet many of the donors. So it's a wonderful connection. Their appreciation is seen in thank you notes that we get every year. For many, if not all of the SSP students, their work, life, and parenting experience turns out to be an incredible asset for them as they navigate the new terrain of a university setting. This program provides access and practice before they venture into such a life-changing experience. The first assignment I give my SSP students every semester is to write an essay about who they are and where they come from when they enter my classroom. And one of my students several years ago, Audrey, shared her story with me, and we decided that we wanted to share it with you today. Thank you very much.
My name is Adriana Chavez. I was born in 1982 in a little village outside of Guadalajara, Mexico. I am the daughter of a beautiful Mexican woman and the daughter of an irresponsible, uninterested father. My memories of my mother are faint, mostly fleeting images of faces, places, and feelings of happiness. We may not have always had food or beds, but I knew she loved me, and I loved her, and that was enough for me. I lived in 1 orphanage and 10 foster homes by the time I was 17. I have been through beatings, abuse, and rape. Before I became an adult, I was a mess. I did well in school. It was my only escape. Along the way, I had one memorable foster parent. Another foster family forcibly medicated and sedated me. What I really needed was kindness, love, and someone to take an interest in me. In this foster home, there were locks on every door, room, refrigerator, and cupboard. It was then that I began speaking my mind. Unfortunately, my foster parents punished me in the worst possible way. They took me out of high school, taking away my only escape. I've sold cars, been a bartender, and a waitress. But I had a dream. I wanted to be a veterinarian. Along the way, my dream was put on hold. I met a boy, became pregnant, and gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, only to later find out that he had autism. The really unfortunate part about being a full-time student and a single parent is I have so little time every day to spend with my son. My son is 5 now, and he has autism. So he's in therapy at my house 5 hours a day at least, every day. And then he goes to school for 3 hours. He's in a special program at an elementary school. So that is the hardest part, by far, is just finding time and trying not to feel like I'm neglecting him. At every semester, I feel terrible and I feel like I neglect my son. Or like somebody else is raising him almost. But, you know, I know in the end it's going to be better for both of us. I mean, I don't really miss out on very much. Yes, I miss out when he's at school. Every parent misses out when their kids are at school. When I look at him, like, all I can think of is a hope that you look back on your childhood and see it as something happy and something you wouldn't mind repeating, that you're proud of who your mom is. That's one of the big reasons why I really wanted to go to school. I really wanted my son to be able to walk in one day to class and, you know, bring your parents to school day and have them, you know, say, what do you do for a living, and have him be proud of who I am and what I do. So that's mostly what I think of when I look at him. If I had to look in the mirror and say something to myself, I would say, you're doing really good, you're trying really hard. Keep it up. You're trying your best to be a good mom and student, and sometimes they don't always balance each other out. One of them suffers, but you're doing a really good job. You deserve every good thing that has come your way, and all the good things that are coming. You just have to keep working hard. That you have people cheering for you and rooting you on, and people that'll be there to help you get up when you fall. So most of all, just don't let yourselves down. Don't let those people down, and don't let Aesop down. I graduated from the self-sufficiency program, became a microbiology major with a minor in veterinary medicine. I was confident that I would be a success. I can honestly say that I love school. I love the thought of being an educated member of society. I love the idea of having a degree, and I love learning things that I've always wanted to know. I'm only going to be on Earth once, and this is my one chance to make our lives better. I want my son to be proud that I'm his mother, and see by way of example how important school is. My name is Adriana Chavez. I was born in 1982 in a little village outside of Guadalajara, Mexico, and I am a survivor. And I have achieved my dream, and I hope to inspire others who will follow me. It's more than numbers or statistics. It's about having a lifelong dream and having people around you who care and are willing to help. Thanks for helping me achieve my dream.
I'm very pleased to say that we have a special guest. Audrey is right over there, so if you'd stand up. know, I was going to say that we're very proud of Audrey here in La Crosse, but I think judged on that reaction, I'd say they're proud in Green Bay and Madison and Baraboo and all over the state. And it's just so nice. Thank you for reminding us how important the work that we do is. And also, I think, you know, we have our challenges and things that we face, but seeing what you've been able to accomplish gives you some strength and optimism about the future. So we're just so proud of you. Okay, well, I got to pull it together here and finish. This has been an incredible privilege to show you the great things going on at the university. I feel just like I have the best job in the world, and that's not an exaggeration, to be in the position that I am with such great people at this university. And we thank the Regents for all that you do for us, and the UW leadership and staff. It's amazing to be a part of this wonderful system, and we're going to keep on doing great things, and delighted that you could come and hear about those. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Gao. We will now recess for lunch, and well, I think we can still hit our mark at having our committee meeting start at 1 p.m.
And lunch is right next door, so we don't have far to go. Yeah.